All right, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Yes, it's your good friend Pozzible here, and I'm back with another review, getting back to the reviews, I should say, and I'm starting off with Desert Punk. It's an anime series that you can find on Netflix. Back in 2004 is when it came out. It's actually a pretty good series, I have to admit. Despite myself, and despite it, I liked it, and that's part of the charm of Desert Punk. It's very well developed, very understood. I mean, basically, you got to take it in the future. It's a world of a desert. You know, you're talking about Mad Max here. You're looking at the future where the water is scarce and people have to survive by any means necessary. That means by hook or by crook, by killing, by basically using whatever means necessary. That said, you have here the hero of the story, or anti-hero, I should say, the Desert Punk, aka the Demon of the Desert, aka Akio. I will have to admit, I'm going to try to prevent myself from pronouncing the Japanese names as to just butcher them completely. I try to be careful about that. In his mask, and don't let the helmet throw you. Okay, this is actually a very important survival technique you've got here. You've got your shotgun, but that helmet that he's wearing is very important for survival. The Great Kanzu Desert, and I'm butchering that name as well, but it doesn't belong to anybody, it belongs to the desert. Where they live, it's a place that gets up to 120 degrees in the shade. The temperature can get down in the 30s to the 20s, so it's extreme temperatures all the way around, to extreme cold to extreme hot. And that helmet that he wears keeps him cool. It's an air-conditioned helmet. It becomes very important in one of the series. The Desert Punk is not really much of a hero. He's more of an, like I said, he's an anti-hero. Very selfish, very perverted, as you'll see by one of his nemesis, rivals, and or love interest, Juno. And yes, she does use those assets as best to her ability. She's the hot asset who we first meet when we first meet the Desert Punk. She tries to trick him, and you know she is tricking him, but let's face it, she's a babe, he's a guy, she's got those, and so it's pretty much over for him. He gets tricked, even though that's his business. He uses his business by using a bunch of tricks. He's actually a runt. Desert Punk is not a tall hero. He's a short guy. He's actually much shorter than she is, and it's interesting listening to him talk because sometimes he's talking through his helmet, sometimes he's just talking like normal. That said, this is his main rival here, and yes, there's a lot of fan service in Desert Punk, so get used to that. And not as much as in other ones, not as much as in like Queen's Blade or High School of the Dead, but it still has its fair share of fan service. There is another interesting character, and this is Kasuna, and I butchered that name as well, and I do apologize for that. That is his mentor. I mean, not mentor, that is his pupil. She is learning to be a badass mercenary like he is. Very interesting considering that she does play a very young child. She plays 14 years of age, and normally someone like Desert Punk wouldn't even consider someone like this until she shows him that. Yes, it's a picture of her mother, or an alleged picture of her mother. So basically, it's not that the Desert Punk is planning on meeting her mother, it's that the Desert Punk is planning that one day, when she quote-unquote becomes legal by whatever standards they have back then, she will look like that, and then Desert Punk can do his thing, you know? There's one thing that is hilarious about Desert Punk, and that is he never wins with women, and for a very good reason. Any woman worth her salt wouldn't even trust looking at this guy because he's kind of wild and crazy, kind of like what the little girl wants to be. She wants to be the badass mercenary. So yes, she learns to shoot guns. She does whatever it takes. She has the typical, motivational speech of working hard and working long hours so that you succeed one day. And near the end of the series, you really do see her come into her own as a mercenary. He gives her the speech, and just when you think things can't go wrong, they really do get wrong. And speaking of wrong, one of the problems I had with the series was the ending. It was a little bit too ambiguous. Obviously, they were planning for a season 2, which unfortunately never came. But also, there was a problem with the animation, and by animation I mean starting with his teeth. That was very inconsistent. Here you get a picture of the Desert Punk without his helmet on, with a wild look. And sometimes he does have that wild look. One thing I did learn to respect about the Desert Punk was that he was somebody who was willing to do whatever it took to get the job done. And if that meant, destroying the very thing he was meant to protect, he would do it. He has a reputation of getting the job done and being very efficient. He takes that reputation to heart. It's his life's blood. It's his way of living. The other thing about Desert Punk is that sometimes, we walk in and he's broke and he's, in deep in debt. Other times we walk in, he's fine. He's rich, Most of the time he's broke, though. That's why he always takes on these jobs. And that's what it's mostly about. It's mostly about him taking on jobs, but they're all connected. And it was supposed to lead up to something really big, but unfortunately it led up to something pretty disappointing. I was very disappointed with the ending of Desert Punk. But like I said, it really wasn't an ending. It was just a interlude of a setting up. Like it was meant to be something bigger, but unfortunately it never got to be. Desert Punk is something I give a see it to. I definitely think you'll enjoy it, despite it, despite the fact that it's got very dark humor, despite the fact that it has very perverse humor. It actually goes, to the limits and a little beyond. It's got a little kid shooting things up, but it's a funny series, and it just keeps going very well. You really learn the philosophy of the Great Kantu Desert, and that time I actually said it right, and how to survive in a place like that. And they really did a great job of creating this world and making sure that it was the world we were being brought into, not their world coming to us. Okay, we were going to them, and we had to accept their life, their world, and not look back on ours. Okay, that's why I do give it a see it. Be careful. Make sure you're not somebody who's going to be easily offended by that kind of stuff. I do give it a warning, though. I do give it a see it, but that comes with a warning. You got to make sure it's your cup of tea. All right. In the meantime, gang, I will see you at the theaters and hopefully have some more reviews for you coming real soon.